Hey everybody, this is AomIsHot22. Looking for we're going to go into defend versus the 2.5x UTG Open. So I haven't been playing a whole lot online. Queen Deuce is going to be a fine open versus weaker blinds. I think most of the people on this website are generally on the weaker side. I want to end up taking advantage of this fact. So I definitely am not very studied in the three-way situations. However, I think this hand will just get bet at a low frequency, and I'm only using half pot with any bets in my range. I'm going to bet this about, we'll say 15. Is that right? Okay, so you guys won't be able to see my RNG. Turn, we're going to end up defending this. However, I think it could be a low-frequency raise. Actually, I think I'm going to end up raising this about 10% of the time as well. We do end up playing a little bit more aggressively. I just tend to play like 2/3 on this turn, and then if I want to use different sizes, I'll use them on the river. King Queen will mix between 1/3 pot. 42 on the RNG. I'm gonna go with the bet 70 plus. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. He just like auto called pre-flop, which is quite scary because we're just like facing a bunch of exactly ace queen, ace king. Occasionally aces will just like be deceptive and play that way. The four betting the roll, we just rolled an 86, so we're actually going to call. It looks funny that we're just calling this ace king, and we were four betting the king queen, but these are all just mixed strategy spots. So we're not like calling ace jack offsuit here. We're doing a hell of a lot of check flop. Okay, we're going to check this back. I mixed it. And pretty clear call with the ace king on the turn. And we're going to mix turn here. Rolling this as well, 24. Basically, this guy isn't going to have enough of the like slow played, specifically 7x in his range, and like aces and kings as often as he should. So essentially, and this is going to get mixed. The ace deuce. I didn't actually mix it. I just clicked check and continue pretty often. Rolling 45. We'll go with the call. These hands don't get 3-bet super often, but again, it's more so a function of actual frequency of 3-bet rather than exact hands. One thing I'll say is that I think out of position ends up like front dooring too many hands like pocket eights here, and I think he ends up having a pretty weak range, as well as the big blind. It's going to be hard for him to find enough bluff, so I'm going to way overstab. I didn't even RNG this. I'm just going to pure bet this on the basis that out of position is just going to play this node way too weak and front door way too many strong hands. Yep. Sort of my exploit. Obviously, I do open myself up to someone playing a pure checking strategy and then I get into more dicey situations, but I think like my idea about how people actually play these spots at like lower stakes is fairly accurate on this site specifically. I might end up doing less front dooring and all that sort of stuff with a lot of hands on like Poker Stars at 200 or 500, just because people are much better and they're just aware of all these kind of things. They're not fucking bad, but on American sites, basically everybody's really atrocious, and I don't want to open myself up to like being absurdly exploitable. So like this is interesting. Like he ends up like ISOing a fish just huge. We need to take a note of this. Like ISOing recreational player when IP from 1BB to 4.5. This is probably fairly strong. Next time he goes to like 3.5, I would just assume that he's quite a bit weaker, and instead of 3-betting maybe like 9%, 10% of that spot, maybe we end up 3-betting something like 15%. And yes, that 15% sounds like a huge jump, but when you eliminate the a high frequency of pocket aces, kings, ace king, queens, jacks, that sort of stuff, and you just like weight his range toward a bunch of like ace-9 suiteds and whatnot, it ends up being fairly, and this is just a pure bet on the flop. It's just an incredibly high EV board texture for me. Not having any checkbacks on this board. It ends up being a fairly good spot. Turn is just going to be a mixed strategy. 3-5 mostly going with the call. I'll 3-bet this 5-10% of the time. Probably more like 5% of the time. 8-5, 8-3, excuse me. I don't know exactly if, like, so we saw him limp like 10-5 before. I'm not sure exactly how he's constructing his ranges. So obviously this is an incredibly high EV board, and while I do have like some weaker hands like the ace-x region that decides to check back, and then obviously all of the just like random 2 pairs and stuff, I think just betting my entire range here is going to be really good against someone that's playing weaker strategies. This is going to play pure check on the turn. And we're checking quite a few ace-x on the turn as well. It's a very defensive spot where we end up c-betting range on the flop. We need to have just an absolute shit ton of turn checks. Obviously, just checking river. And this particular hand, we're supposed to have some frequency of call. The 10 of hearts is not particularly good to call the river, as well as I think people are just gonna not find enough bluffs here either. I think like people at these lower stakes, first of all, they don't call flop wide enough, and then they end up like betting too many bluffs on like, I guess this ace-7. We don't need to be continuing it too often versus 2 this spot, because I don't want to. Okay, I did roll a 10. I don't want to like play way too aggressively. Basically in a node where I don't just want to like way ridiculously overbluff for someone. And rolling a 10 out of 100, I'm going to end up using the larger turn bet size. I don't want to always use large turn bet size with hands like queens on the turn, so I'm going to use 2 sizes in this situation. I think I just need to be... Oh, man. I need to just be bluffing hands like 10-9 and 8-9 and 10-8 and like not bluffing a pair on the river, unfortunately. Kind of sucks, but yeah. And he does actually have a slow play here, so that's good for him. Very good that he ends up finding the slow play with the 6 on the flop. That obviously just like... If he doesn't find those low plays, I can just overbet huge with hands like aces, kings, and queens, and like I could just triple off pocket queens by the river, and it would really force him to call with jack X sometimes, and it would put him in a really shit spot. Calling king 6, BB versus button versus BB, jack 6-6. Good. Very good from him to do that. Okay, I rolled a 99. I'm going with the call. This I'm not rolling. This is just a pure 3-bet. Out of position is not supposed to have many flop bets whatsoever. However, I'm just going to play my range as a pure call with the big blind having a bunch of 2 pairs and straights and stuff, and I think I can basically turn up my aggression on turns. I don't think I need to raise any hands on this flop on the rainbow texture. ISOing way too wide versus this recreational player. It's fine though. 29. Turn. Oh man, I don't know exactly what I want to do. Okay, that's huge. I don't know what sort of strategies I want to play. I'm gonna just RNG. Okay, 94. We'll check back the 9, and I'm pure checking flop, and I'm pure checking flop over here as well. King 2 is just gonna play. We'll mix this. Okay, 48. Go with the check. A6, I think we'll just play as basically a pure check, but one of our weakest aces, and we'll start betting something like ace 9, ace 10 plus. It's tough to say exactly what strategy I want to play on the river because it's so hard to have enough bluffs here. I think just 2/3 is fine. I'm going to end up leading this occasionally. Okay, rolling 4, I'm going to go with the lead. So we get mini raise. I'm going to go with the call. They're just going to be various bluffing opportunities, and we'll turn like an ace or an 8 fairly often, and we'll just be ahead. $40 is slightly scary, but he's just a recreational player. We're just going to call this. River's interesting. I would just call river against almost any sizing, barring like pot and a half or something. Just need to call the top end hands against recreationals where you don't know exactly what they're doing and they're just doing like silly whaley things. I'm checking range on this flop. King 9 will defend with the recreational in the small blind. It's fine anyways. It's fine regardless. Team particularly good. 63 will go with the fold, but I do like 3-betting this occasionally. 6 is very clear check. We obviously just have like tons of showdown against exactly 5x, and there are going to be a lot of hands like Queen 5, Jack 5, 5 6, 5 4, 7 5, 8 5 suited. This is like a $15 ISO. I'm not going to 3-bet it. However, I think it's like very interesting to see how small the sizing is. River, we do a pretty good job of unblocking specifically like the Broadway region, which is like Jack 10, Queen 10, Queen Jack. However, I kind of don't think he blocks enough. I don't think he bluffs enough like Queen Jack specifically. This is going to mix as well. 56 will go with the overlimp. This is more so a function of like people playing very aggressively, like against me ISOing him too wide. It adds a touch more EV having some limps in here, especially if they end up playing poorly. Like if they ISO decides it's like 10x and shit because they think we can never have hands and Jimmy doesn't limp enough strong hands. It can be fairly costly, and you do see people make these sort of mistakes all over the place. Just adding a bit more complexity to your strategy and putting people in situations that they're not as comfortable with, if you're able to execute them well, is generally a good thing. It's a thing you want to be doing as often as you can. Obviously, simplicity is good, but at the same time, if you're competent at certain strategies and your opponents are not as competent, then you definitely want to be putting them in those situations that they're not as competent as you. This is a bit too wide. Blind versus blind. I'm just going to go with the fold. However, if they're not 3-betting at the correct free, like I saw this guy slow play the King 6 on like Jack 6 6, so I'm just assuming that he's slightly more competent, and I don't have enough reads to assume that the guy's like not 3-betting enough. Blind versus blind. Jack 10's going to mix. Queen will mix. 34 will go with the 3-bet. Jimmy cold calls again. Good stuff. I'm not gonna have any big bets here. We could just say that Jimmy ends up like basically. But this guy's probably never gonna bluff either. Maybe I'm playing a bad strategy because if this guy never bluffs here, never finds like bluff raises with Jimmy in the pot, or even if Jimmy folds, then yeah, I'm a bit fucked. Maybe I should have taken a bit longer. I just think like Jimmy ends up having a bunch of hands that he's going to fold, and he probably doesn't think much when two people go in. He just folds a bunch. But oh my god, yeah. And then like you like have, oh my god, this guy fucking had Jack 10 off. Jesus Christ, this guy. Wow, all these guys are just atrocious. Apparently, that guy might be a regular. I mean, that's like too aggressive. I just have too many sets, and I have too many hands like Ace-X of Hearts that have a bunch of equity. I just have too many strong hands there to be jamming, unless he really thinks that Jimmy is calling way, way, way too wide, which apparently he was. I mean, that was insane. Like, that was one of the most massive punts I've seen in a while to call with like Ace-4 in that action sequence. That was ridiculous. These are American sites, though. I mean, what the fuck do you even write in that sort of a note? Like, cold calling in SB verse. Yeah, I guess just like that seems like a reasonable note. I don't really know what else to say. That's just such a punt. We're gonna 25% of the time going with the call this time. And turn, we just don't have very many 4x. Even some 4x will just pitch flop against this large sizing. Not too many, but we will have the occasional pitch. So I don't want to have any leads on the turn here. Obviously, very clear fold. Just losing to like Queen 9 of spades and shit is not a good thing. We're never continuing that. Yeah, I just think we're both perceived to call a lot. I think we're both. Oh wait, no, sorry, this was a cold call. I thought it was in the small blind. He was in the big blind. Never mind. Definitely a fold. I was incorrect about the situation. Ace 2 is just going to play pure fold against like this sizing. We're not going to have any 3-bets. We start like 3-betting Ace 5, Ace 9, that sort of stuff. Maybe even Ace 4 at a very low frequency. Ace 2 is just going to be a pitch though. This is going to be a very low frequency. It just has some exact properties that make sense. Turn, I'm not going to bet 100% with the Ace-Jack. I want to have a club here, and I could end up blocking this river. 54, we're just going to end up checking. Really, heart's quite powerful to be bluffing here. We're just arriving to the river with so much random shit. We can value bet about, I don't know, if he doesn't find enough bluff raises, maybe like Ace-Jack high or something. And like for a very small block sizing, assuming that he just front doors too many hands and all this sort of thing. Okay. So anyways, guys, that is the short little clip. Thanks for watching, everybody. This is AomIsHot22, and peace out.